This morning, I spoke to Jennifer Boss. You may remember earlier this year, her daughter Megan's body was found in the backyard of an illegal immigrant, stuffed into a trash can, covered in bleach, and left to decompose for more than 2 months. Thanks to Illinois' laws, that man was back out on the streets almost immediately until President Trump stepped in and had ICE track him down. Jennifer told me with this many criminal illegal aliens being set free, there are going to be other families forever changed, just like hers.
Illinois is broke. Chicago is drowning in a migrant crisis it can't afford. Taxpayers are tapped out. And somehow, Governor J.B. Pritzker just looked at all of that and said, yeah, let's make it even easier to shield illegal immigrants from federal law. He just signed a bill that basically turns huge parts of Illinois into no-go zones for ICE. Hospitals, schools, courthouses, universities, even daycares. Not only that, Illinois is now giving people here illegally the power to sue federal immigration agents for doing their jobs, with guaranteed cash on the line. So while the federal government under Trump is ramping up immigration enforcement, Pritzker is quietly attempting to build a sanctuary bubble around the state. At the same time, Illinois is cutting services and bleeding money on the migrant crisis. As always, the best way to show your support is by smashing that thumbs up, hitting the subscribe, and sharing this video so more people can see what's really going on.
Following incidents at courthouses, hospitals, and daycare centers, Governor Pritzker signed into law a sweeping bill that protects immigrants from what the governor calls unjust ICE enforcement. Illinois courthouses are off limits to ICE agents hoping to make an immigration arrest. Today, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed into law a bill that bars immigration enforcement inside or within 1,000 feet of a courthouse building.
The idea that the Trump administration wants to prevent people from attending court, doing their civic duty, and protecting public safety just boggles the mind.
Since Operation Midway Blitz began in September, Governor Pritzker says only 2.6% of the people arrested by ICE in the Chicago area were considered high public safety risk by the federal government. Agents have been showing up at places of employment, including a daycare center. Churches, schools, college campuses, and hospitals have been targets as well.
Listen, I'm really trying to understand this logic. They don't want ICE agents, on one hand, going into the jails and the prisons where they can make arrests. They made that clear. In a controlled environment where it's safer for the citizens, safer for officers, and honestly, it's even safer for the illegal immigrants who've already been detained. But at the same time, they also don't want ICE removing people out on the street. So what exactly are they saying here? The Trump administration is going to enforce the law. We just don't want them to enforce it here. All this law really does is put residents in more danger. The very people the governor claims he's trying to protect, because in J.B. Pritzker's world, ICE is the problem, not the people violating immigration law. Listen, you can disagree with the tactics, but there is still something called law and order, and you don't get to cherry pick which laws count and which ones don't just because it makes you feel more virtuous. If you don't like it, that's something that should be taken up with Congress. But J.B. Pritzker wants to sabotage the people who've been sworn to carry out the law. And now he even wants to give illegal immigrants the ability to sue federal agents for doing their job. Take a listen.
Before the bill was signed into law, ICE would just tell a hospital, you don't have the authority to tell us anything. Now you do.
Illinois' new law also requires hospitals, public universities, and community colleges and daycare facilities to develop plans and procedures in case federal immigration agents show up at their establishments.
With daycare centers, it's part of the licensing process. With the hospitals, it's also part of the licensing process.
The Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights and other groups worked with Democratic state leaders to write the legislation. The bill also allows people subject to civil arrest the ability to sue law enforcement officers who violate the Constitution.
No one, and I mean no one, is above the law.
But Republicans in the Trump administration argue Governor Pritzker is acting above the law. In a statement, Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin writes in part, quote, "He must be unfamiliar with the U.S. Constitution. By signing this law, Pritzker violated the Supremacy Clause." The governor says he's not worried if his bill is legally challenged.
No doubt they have the ability to go to court about it, but I believe this is not just a good law, but a great law.
The courthouse element of the bill goes into effect today. Entities like daycare centers and hospitals have been given various deadlines between January and March to submit their ICE organizational plans.
So, J.B. Pritzker just laid out in his own words what he says this law is supposed to do. In his mind, this is about protecting illegal immigrants, making them feel safe at hospitals, schools, courthouses, daycares, all of the buzzwords. He wants to create a world where if you're in Illinois illegally, you can move through all of these spaces without ever worrying that a federal agent might show up. And that sounds great to his base. They're standing up to Trump. They're defending illegal immigrants. They're pushing back against ICE's overreach. That's what he hopes to accomplish. Turn Illinois into a sanctuary bubble where federal immigration law is treated like an optional suggestion, not something that actually gets enforced. But here's the problem for Pritzker that they alluded to in that news report. There's a little thing called the Supremacy Clause in the U.S. Constitution. And it basically says when state law and federal law collide, federal law wins every single time. Immigration enforcement is a federal power. The Constitution gives Congress the authority over naturalization. And the courts have repeatedly said the federal government, not the states, set and enforces immigration rules. So when a state like Illinois passes a law that doesn't just say we won't help ICE, that's one thing, but goes a step further and says, if you show up near our hospitals and courthouses and try to do your job, we might sue you personally and hit you for damages. Now you're not just setting your own policy. You're stepping into the realm of direct conflict with federal authority. Because if a federal immigration officer is acting under valid federal law, under lawful authority, a state law can't suddenly say, well, actually, here in Illinois, you're a civil rights violator, and we're going to punish you for enforcing federal law. Which means, as dramatic as Pritzker makes this sound, a lot of it may end up being more political theater than legal reality. And the most ridiculous part of the law, and most dangerous, is Pritzker giving people who are here illegally the ability to sue federal immigration agents for doing their jobs. Think about that. Think about how upside down that is. But we've seen these liberal judges in these blue states try to block the president, and this is just another extension of that. This law isn't meant to survive serious legal scrutiny. It's meant to work in the short term in front of liberal activist judges at lower court levels who are more interested in politics than the Constitution. And so you can get some sympathetic judges who are willing to entertain lawsuits against federal agents, judges who will issue temporary restraining orders, judges who will let cases linger, drag on, and make enforcement painful and expensive, even if the law itself is shaky. But that's the point, to create more chaos. And under Pritzker's watch, it's already being reported that he's released more than 1,700 criminal illegal aliens back into communities since January 20th, including people convicted of murder, trafficking minors, and kidnapping. Take a listen.
Pritzker has overseen the release of more than 1,700 dangerous criminal illegal aliens since the 20th of January, including murderers, pedophiles, and kidnappers, sending them back into neighborhoods and putting American lives at risk. It is turnstile.
Oh, and Illinois is already struggling with budget pressure, pension liability, and do we even need to talk about Chicago right now? We'll leave that one on the sideline for right now. But yet Pritzker sees this happening and wants to expand legal protection and make Illinois even more attractive as a destination for people who know the state of Illinois is going to shield them. And here's what's crazy. Illinois, Chicago have already spent hundreds of millions responding to the migrant crisis. Shelters, staffing, security, transportation, food, temporary housing, and the long-term estimates are in the billions. And get one thing straight, this wasn't just a one-time spending payment. These are reoccurring costs that stack up year after year. And so when Pritzker signs a law that block enforcement and increase protections, he's not just making a political statement. No, he's increasing the incentive structure in plain English. It's a billboard advertisement that his state is going to protect illegal immigrants from federal enforcement, including in hospitals, schools, courthouses, everything we've heard. And so he's sending a message to the entire country. He's trying to send a message to the entire country. Come here, go to Illinois. They'll fight for you. But here's what he won't say at the podium. The bill is paid by the same Illinois residents who are already dealing with higher property taxes in Chicago, for instance, rising cost of living, and shrinking public resources. And that's why this is so infuriating for the Chicago residents, because Illinois is spending money they do not have. You have working families that are dealing with the reality of property tax increase, yet instead of tightening up and prioritizing Illinois citizens first, the state is expanding protections that will create more battles, more bureaucracy, and more long-term cost. So don't let them sell you this as just compassion. Compassion doesn't mean writing blank checks you don't even have. Compassion doesn't mean cutting services for your own residents while you build legal shields for people who aren't even here legally. This is policy, and policy has a bill, and Illinois taxpayers are the ones stuck paying it. But now I want to hear from you. Drop your comments down below, and don't forget the best way to show you support, you smash that thumbs up, subscribe, and share the video. And as always, until next time,